Rhemma Consult is a firm that helps people get green card through EB1A and NIW. And today we are going to be interviewing one of the clients for Rhemma Consult, and for him to basically share his success story and his experience while using Rhemma Consult. And so without wasting much time, I would like to invite Frank to, first of all, tell us a little bit about himself. Like, how do you feel, Frank?
Thank you so much, Batnodro. My name is Frank. I'm from the West Coast, and I came to US to do my master's in 2019, and currently working on an OPT as a data scientist in one company here in the US.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. And again, if you're just joining, this is Frank. He's one of the clients that have gone through Rhemma Consult, and today we are here to learn about his success story, and he's going to share his experience, and that could serve as motivation for those who plan to do something similar as well. So let's get on to that. And again, if you just joined, I just put in the YouTube channel where you can take a minute to just subscribe, like, and that way, whenever any video or any information about Rhemma Consult is posted, you can enjoy that as well. So without wasting much time, let's get right into it. So the first question is, how do you feel about the approval notice?
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. First of all, I want to use this platform once again to express my deep appreciation to you and your consult, Rhemma Consult, for your assistance throughout this my EB2 journey. I believe strongly that your expertise and guidance actually made a way for me with this EB2 journey. So thank you once again. So back to the question, how I feel about this approval notice. It was like a dream. I don't know how to explain it, but if everyone here is already in US, I can say, or I can equate the kind of excitement I had, or I'm still having, with the one I had when I that day got a visa to come to US to do my master's. So I was so much excited about it. And also, as an international student in US, we all know the problems of OPT, H1B, and then getting a permanent residence. Today, most companies are not willing to do sponsorship for international students. Most of them are not willing to do it. The moment they ask you, do you need sponsorship now or in future to work in US? The moment you answer that question, yes, they'll just push you aside. So this kind of approval was a huge breakthrough for me as an international student in US. As to whether I'm satisfied with the outcome, of course, I'm very much satisfied with the outcome. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your joy and then the satisfaction, and kind of like equating it to when your visa was approved, and that's exciting. I guess my question would be, how did you learn about Rhemma Consult?
Okay. So before, I've been planning with a friend for us to embark on this journey, but we didn't know how to start. We made some few consultations with some other people, but still. And then there was this one day, Sunday, a friend of mine went to church, and then when she came back, she was like, "Hey, Frank, this announcement was made in the church about this guy and his consults. Uh, she heard he is doing a great job. People are getting approval through him. So can we give it a try?" I said, oh, really? She said, yes. So I asked her to give me your number. And then she sent me the number. Immediately, I texted you. Hey, I got your number. I learned you are doing, or you are into EB2, EB1 application processing, or you have a consult. If you are still doing it, can we talk? And then you replied me, yes, we can. And so we had our first conversation. So technically, I heard about Rhemma Consults or Batinodro from a friend who was in a church, and then announcement was made there. So that's how I got to know of Rhemma Consults.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I guess you didn't hear wrong because, of course, there've been a lot of approval, over 65 for NIW client and over 18 for EB1A. So you heard right. But I guess
Yeah.
moving back to the interview, what convinced you to choose Rhemma Consult and take that step, right? Because like, well, you like you said, you've heard of different firms. You do yourself. You said you did different consultations. Like, what convinced you that Rhemma Consult was the right job for you?
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. So before I started all this, as I said earlier, I made some consultations with, I even spoke to an attorney and then some other guys who claimed to be doing this kind of stuffs. So what convinced me to choose Rhemma Consults was my first day interaction I had with you. You made a comment about your personal success stories with EB1 and EB2. And then you also went ahead to tell me how you got an RFE in EB1, and then you were able to rectify it, got approval from the EB1 and then the EB2 altogether. So I was like, oh, this guy who got his EB1, an RFE in EB1 and was able to rectify it, and then also went ahead to get uh, EB2 approval. It means he already knows how the USCI's officers adjudicate case. He knows how these people are thinking. That was the main reason why he was able to rectify his own request for further evidence. So I was like, let me stick to him. There are possibly three outcomes from this whole application. Is either you get approved, you get denied, or they request for further evidence. And he already knows how to rectify request for further evidence. Uh, that is something that excited me about it. Uh, Secondly, you also spoke to me on that first day about other client success stories. It's like people were already getting the thing before I even came into the equation. So that also add up to the reason why I got convinced to stay with you. Thirdly, as I said, I spoke with even an attorney here in US and some other guys. I can say confidently that the rates that Rhemma Consult is charging is actually something that I believe personally is one of the lowest in the market. That is the truth. If we cannot be sincere to ourselves, because I made some few consultations and the prices they were mentioning to me, I know. And so when I got to him and the prices he mentioned to me, I was like, well, this is in the circle of international students, we can afford it. And so that also was one of the reasons. And lastly, was knowing that he's coming from the same area that I'm coming from. That is the West Coast in Africa. And so I was like, those guys I already spoke to, even the attorney, they are not from Africa. So if I stick to an African brother, I believe we can talk, understand each other. He knows the settings from which I'm coming from. And so we can work together. And so to make a long story short, these are some of the reasons that convinced me to choose the Rhemma Consults.
Thank you so much, Frank, for sharing your confidence in your decision to choose Rhemma Consult. If you are joining us now, this is an interview session with one of the clients of Rhemma, and he's Frank. He's sharing his success story among all several success story, over 65 approval for NIW, and then over 19 approval for EB1, with a lot of applications pending as regular processing. Frank today is sharing his journey with all of us on how he used Rhemma Consult. So, Frank, you may have said this, but for the sake of those who may be joining us, and for the sake of the fact that I have certain questions that I'm just following as well, tell us a little bit about your background. Were you confident in a straightforward approval?
Okay, thank you. So I had my bachelor's degree in mathematics with economics back home before I came here to do a master's in financial economics. So back to the earlier answer I gave, the problems with international students in terms of green card or papers, as we all call it, and how that affects your job search and all those things was one of the main reasons why I I shifted from my financial economics that brought me here to acquire something else. And so that made me enroll into a computer science degree program, master's in computer science. So I had bachelor's in mathematics economics with economics, and then uh, MA in financial economics, and recently had master's in computer science. Currently, I'm on an OPT working with one firm here in US as a data scientist. So with whether I was confident with a straightforward approval, uh, Rhemma Consults renders different services. One of them is whether they start writing your script from the scratch, or they do a review for you, they guide you as to, you know. So what happened was I opted for the review option. And so before I sent my document for review, let me be frank, I was not more than 30% confident in what I wrote. But after these guys gave it a touch, uh, I was more than 80% confident before submission. So I was actually expecting a straightforward approval based on the final document that I submitted. Yeah.
You for sharing that as well. The whole process, there've been a lot of communications and here and there talking about, well, you need some number of citations, you need a lot of citations before you get NIW, and all of those things. And I know people don't even want to apply it for the sake that they don't even have citations. So I would ask you, since you have an approval and you use the services of Rhemma, do you have any citations that, as we speak today, do you have any citations?
All right. So to just answer that question short, I don't have any citation. So the only thing I had was I work on a project where I did my thesis on that project, and it got published into uh, one of the states uh, publishing site, but I didn't have any citation as at the time we were doing it, and I still don't have citation. But as you said, that was what everybody says. Oh, you need like 6, 7, 10 citations before you can self-filed. So I can confidently say that that notation is not actually accurate. You don't really or necessarily need any citation before you begin this EB2 journey. I never had any citation. I still don't have any citation, but I got the approval. And I wouldn't say it's automatic uh, getting the approval. I don't have the citation and I got the approval. It depends on how the story is crafted. And that's where you need somebody who has the experience, who has that kind of creativity in order to craft your story for you, in order to get approval. So the fact that you don't have a citation doesn't mean you wouldn't get an approval, and the fact that you don't have a citation doesn't mean you can put anything and send to these people for adjudication. So it depends on how you are telling your story, how best you can tell your story. And that's where Rhemma Consult, I think, comes into this picture. They know how to turn things around. In fact, there are certain things about me that I never knew were relevant to this whole application. I never knew. And I think that applies to almost all of us here who are about to or who are yet to embark on this journey. It was through Rhemma Consult that they started to point out certain things that I never knew their relevance. I didn't even know they can, add up to my case, hype my case to for me to get an approval. So, long story short, I never had any citation, but I got the approval through Rhemma Consult. Yeah.
Yeah. And you heard him right. He said he didn't have any citation, and he still doesn't have any citation. The whole argument is to be able to make a very strong case, regardless of citation. While citation is one of the ways to make a case, it is not the only way to make a case. So thank you so much, Frank, for touching base on that as well. I mean, you said something that I think is interesting, and maybe you could share a little story or maybe elaborate on that. So you said there are certain things that you didn't know that it was really relevant to the case, but when you got in touch with Rhemma Consult, that changed. Can you just give a little example if you don't mind sharing?
Okay. So, uh, one of them was, let's say, the scholarship or funding we all had before coming to US. The importance of getting that funding, how that funding alone from a school to you as an individual to come to US and pursue a master's degree, the kind of uh, the kind of communication that thing is doing about you is heavier than I thought. And also, the first day I met him, when he asked me to tell him about myself, I even forgot to tell him about the thesis I did because I was told I needed a published work, get a citation before you start this process. And with thesis, I was not even expecting to bring it into the equation. That was when the guy came in and tried to turn things around, told me about the importance of those things that I was not even mentioning, you know. And so there are a whole lot of things about all of us here that we didn't even know that those things can uh, talk on our behalf. So when you come to Rhemma Consults, or I believe they'll point out those things to you, at the end of the day, you feel like, oh, so I got all these things I never knew. Yeah, so that is it.
Thank you for sharing that. I think we worked together for about a month, and your case was in last year, so forgive me if I don't remember all the details. But we worked together for about a month. How would you describe our services?
Okay. So our collaboration over that period, I will confidently say was a very positive experience. Your professionalism, your prompt response to issues, your attention to details stood remarkably among all other things. And I also want to say this again to I also want to appreciate your open and friendly communication. I mean, that was, as I said earlier, one of the main reasons why I chose Rhemma Consult. This is like a brother man coming from the same area. So even our communication as to what we want to do, what we don't want to do, was a very cordial one. And so that's actually made the entire process very smooth and enjoyable. Overall, I would say your services were very exceptional.
Thank you for sharing that. How do you feel about the timeline of the write-up? Were you satisfied with the timeline of the write-up?
To be frank, the first day I spoke to you, you scared me about the timeline you gave me. You told me it's gonna take us like 3 months. And I was like, no, this can last for 3 months. And then one thing you did that day that struck me to stick to you was I felt straightforward that you were not just after the money, you were not just after submission, you were you were after approval. So you told me point blank that I should send you my Zelle details so that you will return my money back to me if uh, I wouldn't have that time to work with you. Uh, but surprisingly, when we started the whole process, it didn't even take 1 month. I still remember it took us 3 weeks, and then I submitted in the fourth week. So with the timeline you gave me, as I already explained, we work even below the timeline you gave. You gave me 3 months, and we ended up submitting the work in the first month. So I was very satisfied with it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Again, if you're just joining us, this is an interview session with Frank, one of the clients who sorts the services of Rhemma and got his green card approved last year. And we are learning from his experience as a way to inspire and motivate all of us throughout this process. So, did you find transparency in the whole process, Frank?
With that, I'll say yes. Uh, and one of the things was we all know the rising um, fraud issues in US here. And for you to just send your money to somebody you've not seen before, I think every rational person will think twice about it. So my first initial deposit that I have to make to a stranger, someone I've not met before, uh, I was a bit relaxed about that, knowing what is going on currently in US. But then I took the risk. I sent the money, and immediately I sent the money. Uh, Rhemma Consults got back to me to confirm receipts of the money. I think that was very transparent between the two of us. And also, when they promise you they're gonna send you a document for you to look at, or he promised to do something, uh, I mean, he never fails with a timeline. He makes sure that that document or whatever is delivered to you before 12 midnight. So with that, I think he's also transparent with uh, the money issues and then the timeline or the time you guys have set aside to work with. And another thing is uh, this EB2 process, uh, somewhere you have to handle certain sensitive information. Some of them is, let's say, your SSN. So we all know how very much important social security number is to everybody here in US. You cannot just give that number to anybody. So when we got there, he was playing with me that, hey, I don't want you to give me that number. I want to fill this form and then send you the document so that you can fill that portion yourself. I don't want to see your social security, but it doesn't mean that he said it doesn't mean I don't want to do it for you. But we all know what social security issues with are in US. So I'll send you the document so that you can um, fill that portion yourself. And I think that was also very transparent. He was trying to be very transparent with me on that also. So with whether I find transparency in the whole process, I'll confidently say yes. There was transparency in the whole process.
You Frank just reminded me that doing the work with Rhemma Consult, having seen my face and all of that. So I just remember that I'll show my face. Would you recommend our services to others?
Yes, of course, I will. And I've already recommended someone to you who has, I mean, today the person has even submitted his documents, has filed today. And then there's another person in the process of starting with you. and I'll keep telling people about the good news. In fact, this is a good news to every international student in US. Who doesn't want a green card? And so it's like a good news. This is the new good news. I'll keep sharing it. Whoever who is interested, just like even the gospel, you can't force anybody with it. So whoever who is interested will listen to you and then take the bold step and get a green card. So yeah, I'll recommend you. I'll keep recommending to other people.
Thank you for the vote of confidence. Can you share some specific aspects of our services that really stood out to you during our collaboration?
Oh yeah. So Rhemma Consult has um, series of services that they render. As I said earlier, they do review, they write for you from the scratch, and then packaging. And I can say that all these services stood tall, but the one that stood most tall among them is the packaging part. I once observed somebody, or I was once with somebody who was putting his document together for submission. And I can tell you, the stress that the person went through in terms of packaging the document wasn't something that I was ready to go through. And so with the Rema consults, the packaging of the documents actually stood tall among all the services. I mean, he told me, but Nodo told me, the main idea behind the packaging was to make the work of the USCIS officer easy. So if you have that at the back of your mind, that you want to make the work of whoever who will be adjudicating your work easier, for him also to be happy, be in a happy mood to adjudicate your case, then you have to know how to arrange your documents. And I think with that in his mind, he blew my mind actually with the packaging part of the services. I was not expecting things to be that simple, that compact, but they did. So I would say that part of the services stood tall among all other things that we did.
Thank you once again. I know you've said all the glowing things and all of the good things, but at Rema Consult, we take seriousness in learning from the feedback. What are some of the things we can improve on so that we better meet the needs of our clients, our growing clients? Like I said earlier on, over 65 approvals for NIW and over 19 approvals for EB1A and so many pending applications. What are some of the ways you would say that, hey, Rema Consult needs to improve so that the next person can keep singing our praises?
Okay, thank you. Uh, with what should be done, I think whatever you have now uh, is working. But as at the time I work with you, uh, I don't know how is it now, but as at the time I work with you, we used to exchange documents through email and then sometimes through WhatsApp and those things. So one of the things that I'll suggest is if Consult could establish a streamlined communication system, like a client portal, where I would just be holding my phone and then maybe it will vibrate and I go to the app, they say action required. And then I go to that particular portion of the action and provide whatever documents that I need to provide. So that maybe we wouldn't end up, okay, send me this through this email, send me this through. We will have a hub where all the documents we are working with will stay. So I think that's what I would suggest, or I would advise if you've not done it yet, you should take into consideration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that. I think now the process is getting a little bit streamlined.
Okay.
Currently, we are using a more Google Doc approach. I have my engineer basically
Okay.
working on a website that will make it easier. It also means that I have to consider taking more money because my engineer is very, very costly these days. But I agree with you. On a more serious note, I think I agree with you that a more streamlined process is in place. And I'm hoping that Rhemma Consult will get a website up and running sometime by April.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, that is the hope and prayer.
Okay.
So before we give the opportunity for the audience to ask any questions to you, myself, or any of that, is there anything you would like to share finally before we open the opportunity for more questions?
Well, to conclude everything I've said, uh, whatever we are talking about now is not a story, it's real. I'm a beneficiary of whatever that I'm talking about. I have my EB2 approved. I had no citation. I had no publication. Uh, as I said, it depends on how your story is being told. And that was exactly what Rhemma Consult did to me or did for me. So before that, we used to hear the EB2. We read a lot about it. We watched a lot of YouTube videos about EB2. But taking the step was actually what was holding most people, and is still holding most people. The money that Rhemma Consult is taking, as I said also, is one of the uh, moderate ones in the market. And so I know it's not easy for international students to raise those kind of monies, but let us also think about the consequences of not getting the green card here in US. And so let us all take the step and then uh, get the approval, get our green card, and get settled here in US. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, in case you are just joining, we just finished interviewing one of the clients of Rhemma Consult, who is Frank. He got an approval. If you are just joining, he reiterated that he has no citations, no publications, but with the services of Rhemma Consult, a well thought out petition was written, and then he got an approval. Now I'm going to open the platform for all the other questions, and the questions can be directed towards Frank or myself, and I'll jump in if I have to. So, in the next 15 to 20 minutes, if there are questions, we would address each of them. So, um, at this point, feel free to unmute yourself and then ask any questions that you may have.
Hi, I have a question.
Okay.
I wanted to know, can someone go through the process while still taking their masters and not have the certificate yet? And also, it looks like Frank did a STEM related course. So we that we are not in STEM related, are we eligible?
Okay, great questions. I would take this question. So with the question regarding Frank did a STEM program, and then maybe other clients or maybe yourself or whoever it is may not have a STEM background. Um, Truly, NIW is not just for STEM fields. In fact, in the month of March, one of my clients that I'll be interviewing is strictly in the arts, so nothing to do with STEM, and she already has an approval, and so that would at least give you this idea. But the most important thing is that um, it is not just for STEM fields. And to answer the other question, so you asked the question about whether one can do it during his or her master's degree. It actually depends on the requirements. So there are a lot of different requirements to get in this. We have the advanced graduate degree route, and we have the exceptional ability, and those are really dependent on your years of experience after completing bachelor's degree. But on this platform right now, I won't be able to say for sure yes or no, but I would have to get a very good grasp of your CV to be able to assess whether or not Rhemma Consult would like to work with you, or how we would like to help you improve your portfolio for the application. So it's not a STEM, it is not for only STEM related fields, it's for everyone. In fact, it is for arts, it's for business, it's for education, it's for everyone. And I've had clients in all fields, like even education. So it's not just for STEM. I hope that answers your question, Nadia.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I want to do a follow-up on your answer in the form of a question. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I heard you correctly, you mentioned somebody is not done with a master's here. What if you have a master's from Ghana and you are doing a PhD? Something like that. Does your master's you did in Ghana count for this kind of application?
Okay, great question. I'm going to answer that question. Before I do that, I'm going to put a link in the chat where basically it's Rhemma Consult's YouTube channel that kind of gives an idea of the whole process. But it also gives you a specific instance where we looked at applying for clients all the way from Ghana, right? So that also gives you an idea as well as that. So yes, you don't need, your masters need not be from only United States. It can be from anywhere in the United States, outside the United States, sorry. And but if you obtained your master's degree outside, what you have to do is you have to do an evaluation of your transcript. So by evaluation of your transcript, you take it to an organization who is going to evaluate it. And if it is from, usually almost all master's degree would be evaluated as equivalent of master's degree in the United States, unless of course it is not. But all we have to do is just make a case that it is equivalent by using evaluation bodies. And there are a lot of them you can use. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Let me just then follow up with my main question. So when you talk about the EB1, EB2, and then NIW, technically, what are the differences between these three? And then for somebody who has already applied for the diversity visa and waiting for an answer or whatever the thing is, can you start an NIW process?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of different requirements for each of these categories, and the the decision to go for each of them depends on your portfolio, your CV, and so that would be determined by what I see after I do a review. But to answer your other question, yes, the diversity visa, which is basically the DV lottery, you can always do that in tandem. There is nothing wrong or legally wrong, especially given that the DV, the chances of winning is almost less than 1%. But yeah, there is nothing wrong with doing all of them in tandem. I think we have a couple of hands raised. Sadiq, what question did you have?
Hello, can you hear me?
All right, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Rhemma Consultant, for doing such a great job to help people. I was listening to Frank's story and I am motivated, but I do have a question regarding, like, for example, somebody who doesn't have citation and trying to apply for NIW. So how confident he was at the beginning and how important it is for somebody to work on a government project, because he talked about a project that he did during his thesis. However, if somebody is not working on a government project, what is their probability to be selected for NIW case?
Frank, do you want to touch a little bit, and I would come in, because it's a personal thing and you didn't have citation and all of that stuff.
Oh yeah. All right. Thank you. Well, I had the opportunity to work on these projects. But before that, one of the things that most international students here in US, we don't know, or is that there are a lot of these projects going on in our schools, but we are so busy with what we are here to do, especially. We are here to do our masters, and that is what exactly we want to do, and that's it. There are a lot of opportunities with some of these research projects with professors in other. In fact, this project that I did was not even in my department, but because I had this in mind, I had to search around which professor is doing something related to this kind of national project, and I spoke to him. He agreed that I should work with him based on probably my background. I didn't even have much experience with whatever that we were doing. I had to learn it on that project. So I would advise that in as much as we are here to do masters in something else, we should open our eyes to some of these opportunities elsewhere in the same school. And so, yeah, Emmanuel, you can maybe add to whatever I've said. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So, like I said earlier on, citation is not the only way to make a case for NIW. In fact, if you look at USCI's website, there is nowhere that is stated, and this is recorded, so I can say this in confidence. There is nowhere on their website that is stated that citation is required for NIW. Definitely, these are some ways you can make a case, but it is not the only way you can make a case, right? Like you heard right, Frank doesn't have citation. He didn't have, he still doesn't have. And client is not the Frank is not the only client that I've worked with without citation. About I think a month or two ago, I interviewed Kofi, who also didn't have citation, right? So, I mean, we've made citation a big deal in NIW, and so we are losing track of what NIW itself is. But once you can make a strong case as to why you should be granted an NIW, I think that is what is important, because you can also have citations and still get rejected, right? So it is about making a very strong case and meeting the requirements of the NIW. And I think you spoke a little bit about government projects. Yes, of course. If you are working on any government project, federally funded projects, it is considered positively favorable. And that is something that USCI's website states as well. But again, it is not the only way, right? It is some of the ways, right? So they definitely, the officers know that that there are so many different ways to show that your proposed endeavor has substantial merit and national importance. There are also different ways to show that you are well positioned to advance your proposed endeavor. And while we make citation a big deal, it is not the only way to make a NIW cases. And Frank and Kofi are kind of like examples of why citation should not be the only focus of the application. Hopefully that helped answer the question, Sadiq.
Yeah, yes, you did, because I am trying to go for NIW processing, and my profile is almost similar to Frank. So I was curious to know about that. Thank you for your answer.
Oh, great. Jessica. What about Jessica? Okay, if Jessica is not ready yet, how about Michael?
Yeah. So I also had a question. So my question is that if I'm ready to do it, but I don't have recommendations yet, like I'm still in talking stage with my recommenders, can I still start a process like with Rhemma?
Great question. And again, I would say this. I'm wording this carefully, so let's all understand what I'm saying. Recommendations are not required. It doesn't mean I don't add them or Rhemma Consult doesn't add them. I've had clients that I won't ask them to submit recommendation letter. And I think that is again one of the interviews that we had, I think last month for one of our clients who is Prince, who was interviewed. He didn't need any recommendation like this. That is not to say that you don't need one or you need one. I don't know who Michael is. I don't know you beyond your name today. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you really want to use Rhemma Consult, the first thing is really reaching out for a consultation session where I would look at a detailed CV and then we can come up with a strategy on how to make a case for the NIW. So, yes, no, because I don't even know whether you need recommendations or not. But of course, if I see your case and I think we need recommendations, I would definitely let you know for sure. Yeah. Hopefully that answered your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll contact you personally and then we'll schedule the appointment so that you can look through my CV.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
And for information's sake, if you're sending any CV, please let it be very detailed. There is nothing like it is a small achievement. Like Frank said, there were so many things about himself or his profile that he didn't think about. Sometimes even where you schooled, like even gaining admission into a master's program, like gaining certain scholarships, the competitive nature, these are all things that make a case very strong. So if you are sending any CV, please don't do it like the normal one-page CV. No, like put in everything, like the extracurricular activities, the small things, the leadership things you've done, anything that you don't think is important, put everything there. So that really helps me understand who you are beyond just maybe I'm a master student or so and so. So that really helps. We have about 10 minutes for questions. So I think interested to know who is V30. So whoever V30 is, like, feel free to ask your question or questions.
Okay, hello everyone. I think Michael has asked some part of the questions that I really have. My name is Jessica. Good evening, everyone again. First, thank you so much for organizing this forum. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Now, I'm currently on OPT, and my background is definitely not STEM. It's communication. So I won't lie, starting the whole thing, it's a lot. And if you find somebody who can do some of the job for you, especially somebody who has full knowledge of it, it goes a long way to encourage a lot of people. Yeah, I can say I am 60% or 80% done with my writing, but in fact, I just got stuck because I don't know what to do anymore. I'm trying to pick up references and write to some of my lecturers, colleagues, and all of that. But I don't know if it's possible, if I can get a reliable number to call after this meeting, then I can meet with a consultant. Also, if it's possible to tell us again, because I joined this meeting late, what the fees are like and what we should be expecting, chances and all of that, that would be great. If you run us through the beginning of the meeting again, because a lot of us joined partly halfway.
So I just put in the email that you can reach out, as well as the number for Rhemma Consult. And I think, yeah, we do provide services for both fully drafted write-up and writing write-ups from scratch. Frank himself was somebody who had written the write-up by himself, and he said, "No, I think I need an expert to go through it." And like he said in the early parts of the conversation, that he did feel like it was extremely different from what he had. So definitely, yeah, we work with people who already have their write-up drafted, and usually we work with people who is like, well, I just think I need the help from start to scratch. So definitely, I would strongly encourage you, Jessica, to reach out to these numbers. You feel free to the numbers, to the email, and then we would be happy to reach out with all the needed information. For the sake of time, I would like maybe Philip to also ask his question so that it kind of helps that everybody gets at least some sort of response to their question or questions.
Thank you so much, Rhemma, for the great work. I just wanted to find out, could you please elaborate on the charges for each of the services that you offer? So that's, or do we have to contact you personally to get that information?
Yeah, just contact me and then we'll get that sorted out.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, let me ask that question again because you certainly it wasn't clear. Do you say references are not required, or do you prefer do you go as far as providing or supporting with references?
Question. So just like citations, okay, like citations are not required for any NIW, but if you have it, it can help build a case. There are certain portfolio or profile that would not need letters of recommendations, that would not need those, like I said, letters of recommendation. But that doesn't mean that it is neither required nor you don't have to add it. So, and I can't say for sure whether today Jessica needs it or not, because I don't know who Jessica is beyond the fact that I just know you're Jessica. To be able to determine whether you do need, there are some people that I would strongly recommend based on your portfolio and your case. Like Frank, I made it a requirement for him to submit letters of recommendation. But for Prince, I said, hey, you don't need it. And he was convinced. And both of them have approval. So it's case specific, right? So and yes, we do have services for providing well-structured letters if needed or so.
Okay. Thank you so much. And for those of us who are using cell phone, is it possible to call out phone numbers? Or is it the phone number on your flyer? Is your flyer in? Does your flyer has enough information already?
For the most part, and I think the most efficient way to contact Rhemma is through email. Phone calls, most likely, if not scheduled, I don't think the number would be picked, mostly because there are a lot of, February is a very busy month for Rhemma Consult, and unless appointments are scheduled, phone calls are usually not just picked up. So once you reach out, we can schedule a time, and then you and whoever, usually myself or the other members of the team, would help in the consultation.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it Odinaka? Yeah.
Do you mind I quickly ask my question?
No, go for it.
Go for it. Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the time and taking your time to give us more explanation and enlightenment. I'm being curious. For someone who is actually so much interested in submitting this application as soon as possible, do you advise such individual that has a dependent, but dependents are not here in the United States yet? Do you advise submitting application before the dependents arrive or after the arrival?
NIW, the whole green card process, it's a two-stage process. The first stage, which is submitting the petition, you definitely have to include the names of your dependents, and that is not an application for them. It's just who is your spouse, how many kids do you have. So regardless of where they are, wherever in the world, you should include them. The second stage is where you need to make a separate applications for yourself and your spouse and your kids if you have them. So at that point is when you have to make that separate applications. The whole process can be done either in the United States or outside. Like I said, I've Kofi and other clients came all the way from Ghana, and so they were not even here at all. So you can do it anywhere. It's just if the people are here, then you just do it here. But if they are not here, then I don't think you have any option than to do it from wherever they are, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, anywhere. They just go through the consular process and then they get it through the consular.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
So we have exactly a minute because I want to be respectful of the time. It's a 1 hour scheduled interview. So maybe last question and then we can call it a night.
I just wanted to ask, do you have a separate line from the one you put in the chat? Because it looks like that one, when we chat you, it takes a long time to respond.
That is the very great line to get Rhemma Consult. A little bit swamped up, but I think beginning from tomorrow, most of the messages that have been reached out, or most of the messages that have been sent would be replied as soon as possible.
All right, sure. Thank you.
Well, I would like to use this opportunity to thank Frank for taking his schedule and time out of his schedule to be here and having confidence in Rhemma Consult. Definitely all of you for also being here as well, and would meet somehow or talk somehow soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhemma.